Okay, welcome to Summit Point in the iRacing C-Spec, the Ruf C-Spec. Okay, what we're gonna do here, we're heading towards the first turn and running 6th gear. Now, in something like the Skippy, you're used to probably braking about the 3rd line of cones from the corner. In the C-Spec, with a brake bias of about 49%, I tend to brake right as I'm hitting, with the nose of the car, as I'm hitting the first line of cones. You've got to brake pretty hard. I always try to leave a little bit of a gap from 3rd to 2nd to try to get the car to settle. This corner is probably the trickiest in many ways of the corner of the track because it's really bumpy on exit. You can take 2 lines through here. You can take the tighter line or a wider turn in, and I think maybe a wider turn in might be less bumpy. I'm not quite sure about that. The faster turn in is the earlier turn in. We're trying to late apex it. At corner exit, you've really got to be very careful with your throttle input. Because it's bumpy, you've kind of got to learn to ride the bumps out a little bit. Obviously you want to get as hard on the gas as early as possible, but you've got to really avoid being greedy. Very easy corner to lose it in, but again, you're looking for those markers of hitting the first line of cones. If you want to go deep into it, you want to be in 2nd gear, and just as you come to the end of this kind of straight, there's a little kink in the track. You're kind of looking to start turning again as you're approaching that. You're going to be looking at that for your marker for a late turn in. But as I said, I think you really need an earlier turn in on that. In all honesty, right now I don't have a marker for the turn in. It's pretty much going by the sight picture. So brake at the first line of cones. Leave that little bit of a gap between 3rd and 2nd to really get it settled down, and make sure that you're slowed down enough to get it around the car settled in order to get it around the corner. Now you saw how bumpy it was going around that corner. It's basically trying to push you wide left. You want to be tight onto the right, it wants to push you left. If it really wants to push you left, you've got to kind of let it do that. If you try to fight it too much, you're quite possibly going to go into oversteer and spin, so you've got to be careful with it. As we're going on to the next corner, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get as wide an entrance into this as I possibly can. So I'm getting onto that little bit of pavement past the white line. You see the first line of red cones. There's a kind of where the grass ends. That's where I'm just slightly prior to that. I'll start braking, go down into 3rd gear. There's a little bit of a pavement gap, and then there's another bit of grass, and at the end of that bit of grass, that's where I'm trying to get the car rotated onto the apex. It's very important to get the nose of the car rotated onto the apex and try to get as much of the apex as you can. Corner exit, you can kind of cheat a little bit by taking the gravel on exit, a lot of the gravel on exit. You can take some of the gravel on exit, but if you take too much, it's going to give you a 1x. But a lot of people do use that as a kind of a cheat in kind of certain circumstances. If they're in a close battle and they want a good exit, they might take the 1x. But as I said, you want to get as wide as you can. Use that the start of the first break of the grass as your point where you starting to break down into 4th, down into 3rd, and then the end of that little grass island is where you start to turn in and getting the car rotated onto the apex. Very important you get it rotated onto the apex as you're coming through there. You've got to get it slowed down so you can rotate it. Now I've just gone up in a 5th gear. I tend to take this corner in 5th gear. If I drop down to 4th, which makes the corner easier, but if I drop down to 4th, I tend to lose maybe a couple of tenths, so I'll leave it in 5th. You've got to get it onto the apex. You don't want to be running wide. You want to at least be halfway, in the middle of the track. You don't want to be too far left. You want a proper angle to open up the next corner, but as I said, 5th gear here. You've got to, again, I don't really have a marker for this yet, but you've really got to just get yourself rotated around the apex. You don't want to be coming too far off that. Okay, here it's 3 gear shifts. There's a temptation here to give it a bit more throttle, a bit more gas down here. That tends to leave you a little bit long, at least it does for me. So I tend to just come around here and just resist the temptation to get back on the gas too much. Straight down, 5, 4, 3, down into 2nd gear. Get it rotated tight around this apex, and then sprint down briefly for the sharp right-hander. I don't like to go too wide right here because it leaves an open door for cars on the left. I don't know how that's going to be with a C-Spec, but in cars like the Skippy, people will tend to dive down the inside there. So I tend to take a semi-defensive line in the middle of the track. So get it down into 2nd. Don't go too deep. Get it rotated tight around the apex. That corner's a little bit tricky because you want to get on the gas a little bit harder than it will allow you to. It's very easy to spin the car there. Here I just accelerate a little bit, leave it in 2nd gear, try to get a fairly wide line on entrance here. I don't like getting too tight on here. I seem to lose quite a lot of speed, maybe 4 or 5 tenths if I get too tight on the apex here. You want to kind of bounce off the outside curb, and then you're kind of playing with the throttle and the brake, trying to make sure that you get the next apex. You've got to get tight on this next apex coming up. So it's wide entry here, bounce off the outside curb as much as you can and get tight, making sure that you get tight on the next apex after this one. Okay, now here I don't want to be too far to the left. I want to be a little bit in the middle. This left hand is a little bit tricky. You can take it faster than I take it. I find that if I go a little bit faster around here, I end up being a lot slower. It's one of those corners where you have to go a lot slower than you think you need to. Try, if you're having difficulty with this corner, just try backing off the throttle and just creeping around here. If you watch the next bit, I'm just creeping. You're probably looking at it thinking, well, you can take that a lot faster. You can do, but you really compromise your ability to get around this next corner. This corner is a real compromise corner. Take it slowly. Make sure you keep wide left, so you can then line yourself up properly for the next section. Okay, now here you see I'm trying to get as wide left as I possibly can. Now if you see the scrub just to the left, a little bit further on, there's another section of scrubby ground there. That's kind of the marker I have for my turning. If you get it right, and I don't quite get it right on this lap, but if you get it right, as you turn in, you can be flat out at the apex and you take it flat out down the straight. It's a really advantageous thing to do. If you find you're having to lift a little bit mid-corner, it's because you've not quite got it right. You want to be as far left as you can, and you want to get it rotated so you're tight on the apex and then you're giving it as much gas as possible. So in this example, I don't quite get it right, and that cost me almost 2 tenths, between 1 and 2 tenths. Okay, now here's the crucial last corner. My mark here is really the pit lane entrance. As I'm going past that, past the start of the pit lane entrance, I will brake and go down into 3rd gear. Again, it's just side picture turning, and I'm trying to get it tight on the apex and trying to get onto the gas at least as I'm touching the apex. The great thing about the corner exit here is you can give it an awful lot of gas. It's very safe on exit. As long as you don't end up in the sand, obviously. you can get it. You can have a lot of confidence in your acceleration out of the corner as long as you hit the apex. You've obviously got to slow it down enough for the apex, get it down to third, turn in on that apex, and as soon as you're confident you've got it right, then you can be really hard on the gas. And that is lap of summit point 1:12.3.